"I'm not a funny man," Bob Monkhouse would once say. "I'm just a man who writes and says funny things." It was his way of explaining that comedy takes hard work, and Bob was well known for being one of the hardest workers in the business. He wrote jokes not just for himself, but for many, many others too, including legendary names like Bob Hope. Over the years also he drew cartoons for the Beano comic, starred in the first ever Carry On film, and earned himself a reputation for being the stand-up stand-up, and stand-up is where we're starting. Here's Bob in 1965 talking about taking on the north of England's famous working men's clubs.
There is nothing like this anywhere else, Michael. Nothing at all, not quite like this. Certainly not in the south of England. This is a strictly northern and Midlands phenomenon, northeast too. Oh, you find an enthusiastic audience on a Saturday night in Blackpool or Scarborough or Bournemouth, but nothing quite like this, where people can get together, all in a group.
You work terribly hard. Do you know any place where you work harder than this?
I suppose one works harder and longer in summer show or pantomime, but when you get out on a stage in a club like this, you've got to deliver. And you've got to be a pro, otherwise the audience will lose interest in what you're doing. But if you do deliver, they're the best audience in the world.
A lot of the material here seems to be very robust, to say the least. Very, very bawdy. Now, why is this, do you think?
I don't think it's bawdy. I think it's adult. I think this audience is extremely quick-witted, the club audience I'm talking about. I think they've had a load of, shall we say, disinfected pap from television for a long time, which they like very well in their own homes, but when they get together in a community, they want to hear something stronger, brighter, gayer, and a little bit more engaged to the adult taste.
Certainly it's rough, though, you would agree.
No, I wouldn't agree it's rough. I think what it is it's grown up, as distinct from children's hour entertainment. I don't think it is bawdy, and I don't think it transcends any bounds of taste whatsoever, because I think the general trend of public morality will always give you your own automatic censorship.
But would you agree with me that none of the material that you and the other comedians, let me be fair, use in a place like this could be used on television?
No, it couldn't be used on television, because television couldn't stomach it, and I can quite imagine that every one of these people in the audience would be offended if they heard certain jokes in their own home, which they can thoroughly enjoy, either in parties or in a place like this. In other words, you will exchange a joke at a party in your own home when you've got a group that you'll enjoy, which you would censor out if you were sitting with your children, the vicar, or your grandmother. Here, no vicars, no grandmothers, just people.
Bob was a master of the stage, but he was also a television natural. Over 3 decades, he took every opportunity that knocked and became a permanent fixture on the small screen. He wasn't everyone's favourite. Some found him too slick for his own good. But he was a true pro and ended up hosting so many game shows that most people lost count. Not everybody, though.
You then went on to become an undisputed king of hosts of quiz shows and game shows. I shouldn't think you can remember them all, could you?
Oh, no, Look, the game shows I've done?
How many?
I'd have to be obsessed with my own career to remember them all. I'm not that big an egocentric. I'll try and remember them if I can. Let's see, there's What's My Line? The name's the same, and find the link. And I've got a secret, and trust your wife, and beat the clock, and hit the limit, and bury your hatchet, and quick on the draw, the golden shots, celebrity squares, and family fortunes. I'll never recall the name of the book. Yes, don't catch. Hillary Rooker likes to cook.
Bob, you have a way of gently poking fun, and I mean, I've been the butt of a few jokes along the line from your good self. I think being a cartoonist, which you were early, you now paint verbal caricatures, and you make gentle fun, civilized insults, if you like.
That's a lovely way to put it.
Well, I think if you can't take a gag, you shouldn't be in this business, for starters, right? If I was to throw a few names at you, and the ones that do not work, we will cut out. See if you can do a little gentle fun. You said you could do it when you wrote... You said you could do it when you wrote in. I saw you at the Waterats dinner doing this beautiful thing where everyone at the table got an insult and we didn't mind. In fact, we'd have felt hurt if we'd been left out. So, give us a Barbara Streisand.
What?
Barbara Streisand.
I'm not going to make a joke about Barbara Streisand because she's not well. She collapsed. Barbara Streisand collapsed last week in the recording studio. Fortunately, Barry Manilow was on hand to give her nose-to-nose resuscitation. And she felt much better after that, so they stood back to back and said, "Look, a pickaxe."
Who's been in London recently? Yul
Brynner. It's a little tricky because I don't know. You can't make jokes about his
Different
age.
one? Give you
No,
another
that's okay. I was trying to think of an age joke on Yul Brynner, but he's sort of sensitive about that. Rumor has it he dyes his head. But I was reading. No, I'll tell you what's fascinating. If you haven't bought it, get Yul Brynner's autobiography. Oh, it's marvelous. The best part is where he and Telly Savalas reminisce about dandruff.
I've got one.
Have you?
Yes, and I'm delighted.
Two would be nicer.
How about David Frost?
How about David? I did a show with David for Prince Philip at Jolly's Stoke, and they said in the local paper, the Stoke-on-Trent paper, I said, we're lucky to have David Frost because he is always jetting off in airports. I think it's a nervous weakness. I wanted very much to have a BBC audition. I was in the RAF, this would be 1946, and I'd just gone in, I was 18. And I wanted very much to try out my jokes, and I couldn't see how to get a BBC audition. I didn't know how to jump the queue, in other words. And I was working, because I did shorthand and typing in those days, I've lost the art now, in the RAF, for a neuropsychiatrist, the group captain at the Central Medical Establishment at Kelvin House, Cleveland Street, which was the very notepaper on which I typed this letter, which asked the BBC please to give the undermentioned an audition, as the boy seemed to be crazed with ambition, and his mind might turn upon the opportunity. So under the impression that they're actually curing me of an incipient breakdown, they gave me an audition. A curious fact about that is I was auditioned by someone who was having a breakdown. And yes.
What, a BBC producer?
Right, I gave it to him.
They're all having breakdowns, you see.
At that time, this chap was just fresh out of British Forces Broadcasting Service. A lovely man whom you know, actually. Well, I won't say who it was. He still lives in the business and is a wonderfully clever man. But at that time, he was having a nervous collapse. And he was given the job at last minute to take over auditioning new personalities for radio, of course, because radio was the big thing then, not the box. And he auditioned me and Gary Miller, and he gave us both 100 marks out of 100. He wrote wow next to my 100 and then collapsed. And such was intercommunication at the BBC. Nobody knew that he'd done this, and everyone was saying, it's the first time in history anybody's got 100 out of 100. So I was getting booked like mad. Gary became a pop singer. Lass is no longer with us, and did tremendously well, but had a great voice. I ran out of material by broadcast 5. I was in trouble.
But you, of course, you became at one point, you were on television so much as a young man that, I mean, television was once described as being Bob Monkhouse with knobs on, wasn't
right,
it?
Yes.
How old, in fact, were you when you started writing?
Writing jokes?
Yes.
12.
12?
I sent jokes into Leonard Henry. Do you remember? No, you're too
No, I don't
young.
remember Leonard
He was a
Henry.
great, he was a great radio star, and I was cheeky enough to send him a list of jokes saying, I think these are funnier than the ones you're using. And he was kind enough to reply, returning them, saying, young man, I suggest you mend your manners. It was truly Leonard Henry, that's what it said. But then I used to cycle around to the local music halls to, the first person who ever paid me for a joke was Max Miller.
Right.
I stood outside the Lewisham Hippodrome, I think it was, and gave him a page of jokes. Then I stood outside the Penge Empire about 8 weeks later, and he gave me advice. He said, after about 4 times, he paid me ½ a crown a joke. Well, that was hard to get, because you know his reputation. He was so mean he only breathed in. And really, made dustmen sign a receipt. So he looked at their jokes and he said, I'll tell you what, these don't work, my son. He said, this joke, he said, you've got about the Nymphomaniacs Club, he said, where they only get together for meetings to examine prospective members. He said, I can't do that joke. I said, is it too blue? He said, no, it's not blue, son, it's not blue, but my audience doesn't know what prospective means, he said. He said, no, you want to give me something about the wife? So I gave him something about the wife. He said, give me something about the wife that's good, and you're into folding money. Always remember the words. You're into folding money. Got the ½ crowns. They didn't fold. So I wrote him this bit that he used, Brixton Astoria. I came home the other night unexpectedly, opened the bedroom door, and there was the wife with nothing on except the landlord. I said, excuse me, dear,
I'm always polite to her under these circumstances. Why are you making love to the landlord, I said, when it's the butcher we owe money to? Well, that's when she did something that hurt me. She said, sit down, Maxie, and watch. You might learn something. Well, he loved that, and he sent me a postal order for 15 and 6.
That's a very precocious joke for somebody of your age, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? I would have been about 16 by that time.
The good old days get another good going over in this next clip from one of Bob's appearances on The Wogan Show.
When I started, I'd do anything. I would do absolutely anything in show business to survive. I was actually given the sack from a funeral parlour for practising ventriloquism. It was a little unnerving. For a while, I was a truss juggler, which is an unusual thing. There weren't many truss jugglers. But I packed it up because I realised there'd never be anything more than a support act.
Do you think there's anything to be said? I mean, I do take your point, and I'm glad you've made this very serious point, that the British public appreciate anybody who lasts a long time, whether they're any good or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The longer you last, it's assumed that you're good. I mean, look at Jimmy Young.
Amazing.
Isn't it extraordinary?
Isn't it a joy?
Yeah.
And he sits there with his third shredded wheat that he couldn't eat on top of his head.
Do you remember your first broadcast?
Oh, gosh, yes, I do. In fact, I learned a great deal from my the very first broadcast I ever did was called Works Wonders, and it was done from a factory, 1948, I guess it was, in Leicester. And I came out to entertain these people who were wearing grimy overalls, who did a very hard job, on a bench all day, making Sagamakers bottom knockers or whatever they made, wearing what I thought was a smarter outfit for a comic, the snap-brim fedora and the Tyrolean American suit, zoot suit, a spiv, a hand-painted tie with enough colours on it to put a peacock in heat. I wouldn't say my girlfriend was ugly, but, you know, even the vags under her eyes have vags, all those. Nothing happened. Died.
A bit like here, yeah.
A bit like I feel I'm back in the funeral parlour.
Yeah.
But then a sailor came on in full uniform, and he sang like a duck being ill, but the audience loved him because they still had the wartime spirit, Terry, so they were applauding the uniform. So I got smart. My second broadcast, I wore my RAF uniform with the buttons all polished, and I had the two up. I was a corporal. And I went better. Then I went even better on my third broadcast because I wore the battle dress, and I took the corporal stripes off and put back the airman's badge. And I affected a slight limp, so they went, Really, it was only my innate sense of good taste that prevented me entering for my next broadcast in a wheelchair with a nurse displaying my medals on a tray. Little ribbon.
Did you learn from other performers as you went along? Who was a great teacher or a mentor for you? Were there any one, or was just a variety of people you learned from?
Max Wall, Tommy Trinder. I saw them in the variety theatres, Max Miller, and they all had a lexicon, a dictionary of little tricks, of gestures and things. And for example, my first spot that I ever did on musical had to be 15 minutes, and that was it. You go 16 minutes, you were fined money. But they always did a report on how much applause you got at the end of your spot. The company manager wrote that out. If you got a good report, you got more work. So I bought a clarinet. I'd seen a clarinet and a double bass in a second-hand shop, and I bought the clarinet, which was the more expensive item. But I'll tell you why. I used to leave it in the wings. I'd do my 15 minutes. Then, to take my bow, I'd pick up the clarinet and re-enter, holding the clarinet. The audience, being astute, would see I was carrying a clarinet and go, oh, he's going to play that, so they'd applaud, because they wanted to hear the clarinet. So I'd stand there with the clarinet, and I'd go, ooh. Then I'd appeal silently to the conductor. I'd ruefully shrug. I'd surrender, point at my watch. Got no time for the numbers, sorry, folks. By that time, I'd had 45 minutes applause, you see. So I got 45 seconds, I should say. 45 seconds is a long time to get applause. Thank God no one ever asked me to play the clarinet. Because if ever they told me to play... I had bought the clarinet because it was smaller than the double bass, so I could get it in my case. And also, people would applaud to hear you do an encore on the clarinet, but not to hear you do an encore on a double bass. And I also thought if ever I had to try and play either the double bass or the clarinet, someone would be sure to tell me where to shove it, and it would be easier with a clarinet.
Very shrewd.
Than with a double bass. Are you kidding?
Have you ever regretted the way your career has gone, in a sense, from you were in the Carry On movies and all the rest, marvellous comedian, scriptwriter, to being the king of the game show, the man that most other people who do game shows look up to?
Well, that's very generous of you. to say that. No, I've never regretted doing game shows. You had a ball doing blankety-blank.
Yes, it was great fun. But you do tend to get a bit of pasting from critics from time to time on the grounds of triviality and banality and...
That's the truth.
The uselessness of what you do.
Whenever that happens, I concentrate my mind mightily upon Groucho Marx, who ran a game show for 12, 13 years in the States, and used to say that it kept his ad-lib muscles supple. He was... Groucho, you see, only in a game show could you do this. Groucho actually had a woman on who had 20 children. And he said, why have you got 20 children? She said, I love my husband. And he said, I love my cigar, but I take it out once in a while. Tell me, where else could you use a guy?
As we saw earlier, Bob was always happy to crack a joke at the expense of anyone famous. But he usually avoided laughing at the general public. Here, however, he makes an exception, again to Wogan, talking about some characters he encountered during his reign as the king of game shows.
One of the problems, if you'll allow me to speak about it, of Family Fortunes, which is a great game, is that you do require 5 intelligent members of a family. How many families do you know? 5 intelligent. You can find a bright mum, a bright dad, a smart son-in-law, a clever auntie. You're going to have loony Uncle Ernie dribbling at the end of the line. The one who said, don't ask him anything. You know, what's the capital of Germany? G. Oh, God. We had a family, listen, we had some great families on that show, but sometimes they arrived in refrigerated trucks and they came, ooh, boom, 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 they came off. We had a family, and I mean no offense whatsoever by this is fact. No ethnic or racial offense. We had an Irish family on who...
Now look, it's St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, it is. So therefore, in the name of St. Patrick, and by all that's holy, this is the truth. We had a family from Northern Ireland called Thick. It was the family name, T-H-I-C-K-E. So we said to them, please, it's too cheap a joke. You're nice people, you've applied to get on the show, please. The son-in-law's name is Wilson, we call them the Wilson family. And they came from Newton Ards, I think. And there was a woman in the group, and she was, I mean, really unbelievable. And every now and then you would get these people who talked straight out of left field. We had a question. We asked 100 people, name something pink. What do you think 100 people said? Name something pink. Is it my cardigan? Good answer, good answer. Let's see if it's up there. We finally wound up. You're not going to believe this, but it's true. This was in the first series. I think people have forgotten the disasters we had. We'd asked 100 people nationwide as the survey, name something which is deserted in the wintertime. And the top answers were a nudist camp and I think a swimming pool, the beach. You can make them up. So we got the 5 top answers. A couple of answers had come up. I come to this woman again. And I'm like this, and the audience is like this. And I said, name something deserted in wintertime. And she said, my cousin Elsie. And the audience laughed like the audience is laughing now. And she said, it wasn't funny. Christmas coming up and 5 children in the house. I mean, where do you put yourself? So that's the reason. That's where it becomes material for a comedian to live on TV and keep himself in front of...
And of course, that was a taped show. I mean, do you remember when you used to do the Golden Shot live?
Oh.
That was actually my first appearance on British television was with you on the Golden Shot.
It was indeed.
Wasn't that a terrifying show to do?
I think the Golden Shot helped me immensely because I had a kind of a glib, a flip image on TV. But when I went out and did that show, with not just egg on my face, omelets were seen forming on my chin. We had incidents on that. Did I ever tell you about the loony priest we had on Golden Shot? We moved up to Birmingham, I'm talking about years ago, 1968, and this crazy priest starts writing, and Father Pollock. We didn't always refer to him as that. We found a variation on that. We found 2 variations, the kinder of which was Pillock.
Starts writing in saying you shouldn't show weapons on television on a Sunday. These are the machinery of death, he said, you should not show on television on a Sunday. And he said he wanted to come to the studio and he wanted to be in the studio, I think to administer last rites to someone who had been struck down by a bolt. So the producer at that time suffered fools more gladly than I did, and he had this, and the priest came. So this particular week, Father Pollock is sitting in the front row, and as you said, the show is live, it had to be. I should remind, perhaps, those who don't remember the golden shot, that you had to see the image of a target on your television screen at home in order to say on the telephone from
Up a bit, down a bit, all that.
That's right. Guided events in a television studio maybe 200 miles away. Great single idea for a show. Now, but once you've done that and qualified and exploded an apple, you then came to the studio. Now a woman comes to the studio who's qualified the previous week, came from Kelvinside, Glasgow, and she's got a patch over one eye. So I said, is there something wrong with your left eye? And she said, why should there be something wrong with it? It's not there. So what do you mean it's not there? You had two eyes in the photograph you sent us when you applied for to be a contestant. She said, that's a glass eye. It's not currently in position. The socket is itchy, and I shall place it in position for the show. So now, and then she did that. So now she's not only one-eyed, she's got a twitch. And she's going to the freestanding crossbow, which was the only one that had little danger to it, because that's what you could... And the priest is in the front row. We go on air, and Father Pollock started praying, audibly, in Latin. Now, the assistant floor manager is going over trying to stop him. But how do you stop a priest from praying? God knows what he's praying for. And the woman with the patch and the twitch is out there with the freestanding crossbow, and I'm ad-libbing the jokes. Well, anything could happen today. We all make mistakes. That's why they put rubbers on the end of pencils. She twitched at the moment she pulled the trigger. The bolt, or quarrel, spun off a metal frame to the target and went in, bounced, rebounded into the audience. Guess who it hit? Here. So I've never believed in the power of prayer since then. He went out like a light. Can I tell you another one? Very quick, because it's just come to mind. Because I was explaining to you that you had to see the image at home and say, got the bit right a bit, and you remember that. Okay. We're into about, like, show 18 or something. We're still early days. And there's a guy on the phone, and he's got to phone in and hit the apple, because you're looking down the sight with this camera mounted on the crossbow. And he says, right a beat, stop, right a beat, stop, right a beat. And he's going way off the target. So I said, just a second. I said, stop the clock. I can't hang up on the idiot because we're on live television. So I want to go, Burke, and go. I said, you've left the target. And he says, don't blame me. I told the man. I said, what man? He said, man from Rumbelows, he come and took the television set last Friday. There's more. I promise you there's more. This is live on TV. There's nothing I can do about it. The audience is going, now. I said, you mean, because I can't take this in, you mean you're sitting at home without a television set? He said, I'm not a fool, Bob. I'm in a call box. So, if you're in a call box, you haven't got a television set. I can see the window of Curry's. I said, it's Sunday afternoon, they're closed. They leave the TV sets on in the window over the weekend. I can see you plain as day. Give us a wave. So I went, he said, you're not waving. I said, I am waving. He said, they've tuned it to the bloody BBC.
However much he enjoyed hosting, stand-up would always be Bob's first love. So we'll end with another of his encounters with Des O'Connor and a taste of what audiences would enjoy at a Bob Monkhouse live show.
I was a very late developer. I must have been in my late 20s, and I knew nothing about girls, really very naive, and I was appearing in a pantomime, and the girl who was playing Cinderella was really sophisticated. I mean, I was in awe of this girl. She knew everything, and I knew nothing. And it turned out she fancied me. Really. And one night after the show, she suddenly said to me, she said, come back to my place after the show tonight. I have mirrors on the bedroom ceilings. And I have mirrors on the bedroom walls. Bring a bottle. I took Windoline. I didn't know what she was talking about. How was I doing? Oh, you're very smart. All right, you knew. I didn't know. I knew nothing. You know now. I bet you didn't know then. Because it's do you know about this? If you have mirrors on your bedroom ceiling, it's meant to enhance your romantic life. Put it that way. So I thought, I'll try this to rescue my marriage. I'll get mirrors. And that'll... Because budgies love them, don't they? Budgies do. Mirrors. I thought, if it works for me, I'll buy the little ladder, the bell. I don't care what I spend. You don't have to have heavy mirrors that can threaten your skull. You can go to the DIY, get expanded polystyrene tiles, they're mirrored on one side, you stick them up there with the bonding, they'll stay there for life, forever, forever. So now I get enough, I measure the bedroom ceiling, I get enough tiles, and I'm going to stick them up there this weekend, and I have to go up to Glasgow to do an unexpected TV show. So, fool, I said to my wife, I said, those are for the bedroom, stick them in the bedroom, I'll be back Monday. I get back Monday, you're not going to believe this. She stuck them on the floor. On the floor! It's not the same. It's not. There's no good pretending. It's not the same. It's one thing to lie nude on the bed looking up at yourself, you know. You don't look too bad. But when you're standing there looking down... It put me off sprouts for a fortnight.
The audience reaction there brings to mind one of Bob's most famous lines. They laughed when I said I wanted to be a comedian. They're not laughing now. It's pure Bob, clever, loaded with false modesty, and demonstrating a skill other comics would sell their mothers-in-law for. You've got to be good to come up with a line like that, and Bob Monkhouse was up there with the best.